entrance. Now, this is the situation that primitives and despots always try to prevent. Their biggest fear, their nightmares, the specter that haunts them, is a world in which all flows are decoded, a world in which something is not primarily constituted by its intrinsic worth, but by the money that it is sold for on a market. But this was a two-phased process. And the first phase is the constitution of the emergence of what Michel Foucault called the disciplinary society, the societies of discipline. And this is the Western world in the 18th and 19th century. In disciplinary societies, capitalism is already present full force. But meanwhile, the despot, or the state at this point, is trying to maintain its dominant position. And it's doing a pretty good job. Now, disciplinary societies are the era of enclosed spaces. Think of the prison or the factory as primary examples. An enclosed space is a space with a particular function, a particular way in which it disciplines bodies. So human bodies are first raised in the space of the family, then educated in a school, put to work in a factory, put to fight in an army, and if necessary, put into prison to suffer. Every single space has its own little despot. And as we have said, capitalism operates with axioms, not coding, and those axioms are by now already present in the disciplinary society. All factories compete on free markets and their products don't have intrinsic worth. They have monetary values. To put it differently, however a product is coded, it can be sold or bought. The same goes at this point for labor. There is no longer intrinsic worth to a person performing labor. However you code him, at the end of the day, his labor can be sold at the market. But within the enclosed spaces themselves, overcoding is still dominant. So in schools there's the model student, and in factories there's the model worker. In other words, within every enclosed space there is a mold, a mal, in which one should fit, a moral code. Therefore, in disciplinary society, you become something there, and then you leave the space and you're done with it. And in a certain way, states are doing the same thing to businesses at this point. In the 18th and 19th century, the first great corporations have already emerged. However, every single corporation is bound by law to have a charter. And this charter is a legal document that forces a corporation to serve the public good. Or in other words, at this point, corporations are still on the leash of the despot. Of course, again, all this is doomed to fail. Reality machines on, and at a very specific point, capitalism becomes mature and the dominant force on earth. And this specific point, I think, is the year 1886, in which the case of the County of Santa Clara versus Southern Pacific Railroad Corporation was brought before trial in the United States. In the decades before, the US passed a series of laws concerning personhood, and these laws stipulated who was to be regarded as a legal person and was primarily meant to increase the equality of former slaves. However, when brought before trial, in the case of County of Santa Clara versus Southern Pacific Railroad, judges found that the wording of this law also grants personhoods to corporations. And to make a long story short, after legally being granted personhood, corporations, through a series of trials, demanded full autonomy and full freedom, leading to the abolishment of their charters. The highest legal obligation of a corporation to this day is no longer to serve the public good, but to make profit. So at that day, capital replaced the despot, according to the word of law. In addition, this heralded the end of the disciplinary societies of early capitalism, and in the second half of the 20th century, this would culminate in the emergence of what Deleuze calls societies of control. And control is the key element in this story, and we're already there. And for Deleuze, from Deleuzean perspective, setting free corporations has created one world market in which multinationals are no longer bound by states, but instead use nation states to do whatever it is they do. In addition, anything can now be made into a product on that world market. Thirdly, everything on that world market is constantly moving in societies of control. So remember that capitalism decodes